Hey guys, this is your Jomba. Welcome to the channel. Professor Abraham Kithure Kindiki is a professor of law. He studied law at Moi University. He graduated, became a lecturer at Moi University. He went further to proceed for his master's in South Africa and then his PhD in South Africa. By the early 2000s, he came back to Kenya. He practiced as a lawyer in Nairobi, as well as being a lecturer at the University of Nairobi, until he moved back to Moi University. Professor Kithure Kindiki joined politics in 2013, where he was elected the senator for Tharaka Nithi County, and he was again re-elected in 2017 as the senator of Tharaka Nithi County. Kithure Kindiki is no stranger to Kenyans. He is well known as President Ruto's lawyer at the International Criminal Court when President Ruto was the deputy president. After he was charged, he was indicted at the International Criminal Court. He was supposed to be selected as President Ruto's running mate in the run-up to the August 2022 general elections, but President Ruto instead went with Rigathi Gachagua, who ended up becoming elected together with President Ruto on the same ticket. He served as his deputy president until October 2024 when he was impeached. And Kithure Kindiki was then appointed as deputy president on 1st November of 2024. A lot of people have very different reactions to Professor Kithure Kindiki, especially because he is viewed as a lightweight in Mount Kenya politics. From what we understand here on Mwabili Mogodi TV, President Ruto's gamble with Professor Kithure Kindiki was that he was going to bring Mount Kenya behind him and help the president in his re-election bid in 2027. This has proved to be a very difficult task for Professor Kithure Kindiki because the people of the mountain are very, very sensitive to what they called betrayal. We saw the people of the Mount Kenya community do what they did to Uhuru Kenyatta in 2022 when they completely refused to support his candidate for presidency then, the late Baba Raila Amolo Odinga, and instead the Kikuyu community went ahead to vote and elect President Ruto into office in the August 2022 elections. I have no idea what President Ruto thought about this community when he impeached Rigathi Gachagua from the office of the deputy president. And most likely, he was sure that Professor Kithure Kindiki was going to bring home the bacon, that Professor Kithure Kindiki was going to galvanize the people of Mount Kenya behind him and support President Ruto in the last few years of his presidency as he prepares for the re-election battle that is coming up. What we have witnessed the past few months is that Professor Kithure Kindiki has completely lost the support of the mountain. Yes, he can go ahead and claim Mbeere North as a victory, But one thing you must remember is that Mbeere North was only won by a few hundreds of votes. It was not more than 500 votes that Deputy President Kithure Kindiki secured for the parliamentary aspirant for Mbeere North. And this brought in a lot of questions amongst the political class as to the future of Deputy President Kithure Kindiki. His fate was sealed in the recent by-election at Olkalau. This by-election was held on the 16th of July, and the 3 months towards this by-election, we saw President Ruto throw the whole kitchen sink at the people of Olkalau. Deputy President Kithure Kindiki camped in Olkalau himself personally to campaign for the UDA candidate, Mushina. We saw nearly the whole cabinet camp at Olkalau. We saw Mount Kenya MPs allied to President Ruto camp in Olkalau. But that ended in a thrashing defeat for Deputy President Kithure Kindiki and his Mount Kenya MPs allied to UDA and President Ruto. And now the whole house is in disarray. We are seeing ODM now openly claim the position of running mate for the 2027 general election. And it is very clear from where we sit as Kenyans that Professor Kithure Kindiki is not in the calculations as a potential running mate for President Ruto in August 2027. People like Ali Hassan Joho have said they are ready to be appointed as a running mate for President Ruto. We have seen John Mbadi named as a candidate for running mate with President Ruto. We have also seen Gladys Wanga proposed as a potential running mate for President Ruto. And Gladys Wanga, the biggest strength she will bring to that ticket is most likely the woman or the women vote, which is extremely crucial to President Ruto's re-election chances. However, recently, on the weekend of the 25th and the 26th of July, we have seen ODM and specifically Junet Mohammed push for former Kakamega Governor Oparanya, Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, as the definitive candidate for running mate together with President Ruto in a joint UDA-ODM ticket. And this looks like the deal is done. Professor Kithure Kindiki came out strongly, however, to say that he is not a pushover and he is not going to make way for ODM to take his position as deputy president. The only question we have for Professor Kithure Kindiki is, how are you going to achieve this, considering you do not have the people behind you? Viewers of Mobili Mogodi TV, you must remember that elections are different from governance. Professor Kithure Kindiki might be President Ruto's most trusted ally. He was the cabinet secretary for the interior when we witnessed mass abductions, torture, and killings of young Kenyans who were protesting against President Ruto. We saw him supervise the shooting and killing by sniper marksmen during the June 25th protests. And Professor Kithure Kindiki, was instrumental in the totalitarianism or the brutal change in President Ruto's governance, where they actively pursued Kenyans on social media and on the streets in an effort to quell discontent and to quell any kind of resistance from the Kenyan people. So we do know that President Ruto owes Professor Kindiki a very big favor, and this puts him in a very tight spot as he navigates towards the August 2027 election. One thing I can tell you for sure, viewers of Mwabili Mogodi TV, I am 100% sure that Kindiki does not make the cut as President Ruto's running mate as we begin campaigns for the 2027 general election in earnest. This, I am telling you mathematically, does not help President Ruto in any way to have Professor Kithure Kindiki as his running mate. What is Professor Kithure Kindiki bringing to President Ruto? He does not have Mount Kenya East, where he comes from. Mount Kenya East basically will be Meru, Tharaka Nithi, and Embu. And these are what is basically dominantly Meru. They are Meru people from these counties, these three counties, even though the Tharakas and the Embus have a distinct language and identity. They were identified as their Meru by the colonials and later on by subsequent administrations, and they were all put in one basket as Mount Kenya East. He does not have the support of Mount Kenya East. However much Geoffrey Ruku comes out and tries to poison the people of Mount Kenya East or versus Mount Kenya West, these people have made their minds, and President Ruto is not their cup of tea for 2027. So, what is Professor Kithure Kindiki bringing to the table on behalf of President Ruto for 2027? I can tell you, and I guarantee you 100%, nothing. What President Ruto needs more than ever is the vote ya watu wa Luo Nyanza, and he needs the vote ya watu wa Luhya, or the Western region. And the only way for him to try and secure these votes is to have a running mate for the 2027 elections from either of these two communities, either the Luo Nation or the Luhya Nation. Professor Kithure Kindiki, you are not a victim. You are a grown man. And we have started seeing you being embarrassed in public by this same president you serve and the same government you serve. My advice to you as Mwabili Mogodi, on behalf of the viewers of Mwabili Mogodi TV, is to tell Professor Kithure Kindiki, your time is up. Afukuzwae haambiwi toka. The time has come for you to leave this government quietly, resign as deputy president, go and reorganize yourself, re-strategize, and repackage yourself for the August 2027 election. A presidential run will be a waste of your time and resources because you are not even going to secure a single vote in Marima, where you come from. I have been to Marima. I have interacted with the people of Marima, and those people do not have anything nice to say about Professor Kithure Kindiki. You running for governor is a big step down. Going back to your Senate seat is highly improbable. My advice to Professor Kithure Kindiki, he goes back to academia, looks for an international university, maybe an international institution like the United Nations, go retire from active Kenyan politics until such a time when the people of Kenya are going to have an appetite for you to lead this country. And I have nearly zero expectations that is going to happen anytime soon. Viewers of Mwabili Mogodi TV, thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much for watching this content. Continue the conversations in the comments. There is a lot of talk about with regards to the August 2027 election. Please share this content with your friends and family around the world. And I hope to see you again soon on another episode on Mwabili Mogodi TV, where we discuss real Kenyan stories. Asanteni.